Well, welcome back to Building Blocks. That's Jerry Nixon. I'm Christopher Harrison. And, I guess the best place to start if we're going to get somebody up to speed on what UWP is all about is probably to tell them what UWP is all about. So, Jerry, what's UWP all about?
I knew where you were headed with that. UWP, that is the Universal Windows Platform, and it's what makes Windows 10 so special, especially for a developer. So what is it to you? Just take this one sentence away and you can have it. It is a single API surface across all devices. So this is not one operating system. The operating system is actually below UWP. UWP is just bringing to you a guaranteed set of APIs that are always going to be the same, regardless of where it is your application is running. So you're writing to the phone, or you're writing to a desktop, you're writing to an Xbox or a HoloLens, you're always going to have a dedicated set of APIs that you can rely on that will be the same all the way across. This allows me to write an application and trust it really could run on another device. Now, when we say device, we group those into a thing called device families. And so a device family can be a lot of different things, and they really correspond to a SKU of Windows. And so, for example, there's a version of Windows intended for the desktop, and a version of Windows intended for mobile, and a version of Windows intended for IoT. Now, if you boil it all down, that's one version of Windows for variants of that window, of that operating system. And so that's great for us, but that's still a subtle difference across all those devices. What we want to see is that similarity. That's where UWP comes in. So today we'll see, for example, Windows holographic. What we don't have is Windows HoloLens, right? We have Windows holographic that runs on a HoloLens, and it'll run on any other holographic device if there ever is one, right? And so I guess you wouldn't see it; it'd be holographic.
So basically what you're telling me is if we've created the version of Windows, regardless of where it's running, creating UWP apps, it's going to be able to run on that device regardless of the type.
Yep, that's exactly right. And so from a developer's point of view, your experience is one beautiful experience. It starts with the UWP itself, right? So you have that place that you're coding, or that surface that you're coding against, so you know, and you don't have to say, hey, am I on a phone? Can I actually do this or not? It's already there for you, and you can trust it. We give you a single IDE that's Visual Studio 2015, and I think it's worth calling out that with Community Edition of Visual Studio, you can do everything. And so with 2015 was the first time we announced Community Edition. Prior to that, it was always the Express Editions, which were very limiting. This is not a limited version. The Community Edition is really terrific.
Yeah, it's essentially Pro with, I think there's like one or two minor features, but the biggest thing is really just around your usage. That if you're creating open source, certain number of users in your org, a certain, amount of money that you make, something like that. But that's really the limiting factor. Otherwise, it's a fully featured version of Visual Studio.
Yeah, if you're a student, that's perfect for you. If you're an independent developer, that's perfect for you. If you work at home as a hobbyist, that's perfect for you. I mean, really, it is a terrific version of Visual Studio. And as a developer evangelist, I couldn't be happier that it's out there and available for you to go get. Anyway, visualstudio.com if you want it. We also give you a single dev center. And so this is that dashboard, that single dashboard where you can go and look at all of your different applications, look at all of your monetization, look at everything that's in the store across all the different devices. And so that's where I go. I go to dev.windows.com to get there, log in, and go to my dashboard. I can see everything in one place. So that's great, right? It didn't always used to be that way. It used to be you'd go to the phone center and then you'd go to the desktop. Not anymore. Starting with Windows 10, we brought everything together so the developer experience is perfect. Just one place to go for everything. And finally, the store itself. Now, this is more of a consumer story than a developer story at first, right? So this is the store where I would go to find an application that you write so I could go install it. What's beautiful is you put that into the store and you get all the value out of it. So because there's only one store, you take advantage of its licensing. You take advantage of its upgrade mechanisms, as well as reach out to consumers, businesses, and to education. It's a single store for everything. It's really beautiful, Christopher, and I know that you know that. And it's just a thing of absolute beauty. From a more of a nerd point of view, though, there is a compatibility story around UWP that we've never had before. And it starts with the idea of version ranges. So as Windows 10 begins to upgrade, and of course it will, we're already past update 1, we know update 2 is in the future, and then we're going to go on from there. And so as that happens, what I don't want is for my application not to run, or for me to be able to embrace one of those versions and no longer be able to run in one of the old versions. Of course, Android developers know this metaphor really well because this is kind of how it works in the Android world as well, or I can set a range of targets. So remember, as a normal desktop .NET developer, we would target a framework, and inside that framework, we would be stuck. If you don't have .NET 4, then you're not going to have it. What's beautiful now is I can say update 1 or let's call it update 0, whatever is before that, right? And 10.240, right?
Sure.
Yep. 10.240 or 1.586. Those are the two numbers that we have today. So I can say as a range, my low is 10.240 and my high is 10.586. And I can run on both and take advantage of both of those. Then it's my responsibility as a developer to say, if I want one of those extra features inside 10.586, what I'm going to do is test for it at runtime. What's beautiful about it is it's binary compatibility across all the different versions. Meanwhile, I've already got compatibility across all of my device families as well. It's a beautiful story for developers.
I like it. So what can I access then with the APIs?
With UWP API, that single surface.
Yes.
Well, I don't know the easy way to say it except for pretty much everything. So what we call the Windows runtime is really a face to or an abstraction of all of the Win32 APIs that we're accustomed to in the past. Now, of course, it's not all of them, and we'll go through in this course some of the constraints around this type of app to make sure that we protect the user and give them an excellent experience while we're trying to give the best developer experience we can as well. But overall, when you think about how do I interact with Windows, that's abstracted and brought up through the runtime for us. And it's not like the CLR, .NET runtime. In the .NET runtime, that actually sat under or between the machine and your application. There is no runtime in UWP. You build your application and compile it right down to the metal. Now, you will have some bootstrappers that run with you to make sure you have things like garbage collection and stuff we know and love. But what's beautiful, too, is if I were a C++ developer, I'd be bragging already that I compile down to the metal, and that's how fast I can run. Now that I'm a UWP developer, or I'm a Windows 10 developer writing apps in Windows 10, I get that same experience and that same benefit. So my startup time, my memory usage, it's just off the charts beautiful, including my ability to leverage and enjoy the optimizer, the same optimizer C++ developers have today. So if you're writing a UWP application today, just know that once it ships down from the store to the user's machine, they'll be running machine code. They won't be running something inside a runtime. We do call the Windows runtime the suite of APIs. We call that the WinRT or the Windows runtime. And so we still use that term, but what we don't mean is this thing that takes a lot of memory and can potentially impact the speed of your application. Not here. We have all the benefits. We call it .NET Native, and it's absolutely, absolutely beautiful. All right, well, you might be asking yourself, well, what else can a Windows app do? And I think it's
Hey, Jerry, what else can a Windows app do?
I knew you were going to ask, so I wrote a slide just for you.
I appreciate that.
And this is far from exhausting. Exhaustive. It's very exhausting, no doubt about it. There's so much that you're capable of doing. So you were like, what can we do? What can we do? And really, the answer is really hard because it just goes on and on and on. And we're able to extend it as well because we have that API surface across all the devices, but that's not enough because there are special things I can do on a HoloLens. There are special things I can do on an Xbox. There are special things I can do on a phone. All of those can be enabled without spoiling that compatibility that we already know and love. We do that through extensions, and you get the benefit without any of the detriment that we're used to. We would usually make a reference to a DLL that gives us extra capabilities. Now it can't run on a HoloLens. That is not the story around UWP. I can do all of these things, and as I add these capabilities, it doesn't disqualify me from running on a little Raspberry Pi. I still can, and it's really up to me as a developer to enable all these things and use my imagination to do really as much as possible. I think it's a worthwhile call out. This entire course that we're going to go through is built on the blank project that ships with Visual Studio 2015. There's a lot of boilerplate code that every developer is going to get the opportunity to write. You may or may not like to write boilerplate code. I want to call out there are several frameworks for you to be able to choose from. I'm a fan of Template 10, partly because I'm the author, and you can find it in the Visual Studio gallery, and it'll get you started a long ways down the road. But that's UWP. When people say UWP, they mean the Universal Windows Platform, that single API surface across all devices.
I like it. But Jerry, we're looking for experienced developers, and you know what developers like? They like code. We should probably take a look at some code. So what do you say we close this off?
Time to open Visual Studio.
Yeah. Come back in, start designing an app, start building.
You got it.
All right, I love it.